Welcome to the Erotic Realm podcast, where we explore the psychology of darker desires. I'm Em, and if you're new here, welcome. I'm a psychosexuality nerd with a background in psychology, sociology, medical science, and Tantra. I'm also in a 24/7 collared relationship, and I'm passionate about humanizing kinksters. Join me here for in-depth one-on-one conversations as we explore the fascinating world of eroticism, one erotic realm at a time. If you love what we're doing here in the erotic realm, I'd like to ask you a quick favor. Can you follow and rate the show on Spotify? It helps the show reach more people like you. And if you haven't yet, I'd love if you could subscribe to my Substack, Psychology of Desire. This is where I go even deeper into the science of symbolism, of desire, archetypes, and erotic evolution. You'll get access to articles, unique surveys and research, and behind-the-scenes access to everything we're building. Visit psychologyofdesire.substack.com. I'll see you there. And now for today's episode. The following is a conversation with Daphne, a 31-year-old collared slave in a 24/7 master-slave relationship with Master Arcane, her dominant of over 10 years, and co-educator at the Crow Academy. In this episode, we explore what it means to live consensual, erotic devotion as a lifestyle, one built on daily rituals, ethical power, and emotional transparency. Daphne shares how she reconciles feminism and submission, reflects on her erotic evolution, and responds to concerns about the manosphere's growing influence in kink communities. This episode also marks a first for the erotic realm, a two-part special featuring both sides of a long-term MS relationship. Today, we meet the slave. Next week, we meet the master. Enjoy. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Erotic Realm podcast. Today, I'm very happy to have with me Daphne. Welcome, Daphne.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So, listeners of the podcast have requested to get to know a bit more about the person I'm interviewing outside of kink. So, first of all, we'd love to know, what are your interests outside of kink, whether that be your general work area, if you're happy to share, or your hobbies, or both. Basically, what are you up to when you're not being a kinkster?
Um, I consider myself an artist. I've been drawing ever since I was a little girl. So that's a big part of my life is just doodling and, trying out different mediums, but mostly right now digital art. And I want to get back into like traditional paints again.
Mm-hmm.
I used to do acrylics. That was a lot of fun. Now I want to kind of branch out into oils because those have always scared me. So I have to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, art is a big passion of mine. And then pretty much anything pop culture, especially video games. I've also been a gamer since I was a kid. So I spend a lot of my time playing video games, and that's actually one of the reasons that me and Master Arcane connected is because we're both big gamers, and
Oh,
we
cool.
actually had our first, I don't know, a virtual date, I guess, playing a multiplayer game called Destiny together, and that was actually a lot of fun. I'm sure he's going to mention it,
Mm-hmm.
just because it was kind of a big deal for both of us that we had that common interest. And then, just like comic books, movies, that sort of thing. We're both really into like Marvel and DC, me mostly Marvel. And so we've just been really grooving on pretty much everything that's like on the Disney Channel, or Disney Plus, sorry. And like Star Wars. Um, what else is on there? We just finished the Daredevil show, and that was incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, big nerd culture, I'd say.
I love
But
that your
that's me.
first date was
Yeah.
gaming. That's so nerdy and cute.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Because at the time, we were about 2.5 hours away from each other,
Okay.
and I had just found him online, and I had just gotten over like a couple months ago, like a bad breakup, and I was like, promised myself like my next relationship is going to be kinky because I've always wanted to try it. And every single boyfriend that I've had before, I was like, hey, let's try this. And they'd be like, yeah, sure. And then when it get to, the sexy time, I'd be like, hey, let's bust out some bondage or handcuffs. And it'd be like, next time. And it was always next
Mm.
time. And I got really tired of that. And so I promised myself, I said, okay, I'm going to dive into kink.
Mm-hmm.
And so I found Master Arcane's website and I messaged him and we got to chatting. And I saw that he had had an application for a live-in slave, and I didn't know what that meant at the time. So I applied because in my mind, I'm like, oh, this guy teaches women how to be submissives for like future male partners and such. So I thought I was like applying for, you know, uh, like a position in his school, so to speak. And then we
Mm.
got yeah. So there was a bit of a miscommunication there at first, but we met, I think, on Skype and found out he was very handsome, very intelligent, which I really liked. And we got to talking a bit, and I think he asked me the same question, like, "What do you do for hobbies?" And I was like, "Oh, I game." And he's like, "Oh, are you on PlayStation?" I'm like, "I am actually." And so one thing led to another, and we're doing this first person shooter game, which I don't know if you have any experience with. It gets people really riled up, and I'm very competitive, so I
Mm-hmm.
get very riled up
Yep.
and very unfiltered.
Mm-hmm.
And he loved that. And so it pretty much is just all downhill from there.
Right. Yeah,
Uh,
I'm a
yeah.
long-term Counter-Strike player, so I totally get
Oh,
it.
you know then. Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Great.
So
So I'd love to jump into your sexuality a bit more now. How would you describe it,
absolutely.
and what roles do you inhabit in terms of your kinky side?
I identify as a submissive and slave. So which basically just means that I like giving up control to someone who I trust,
Mm-hmm.
and that is a big piece of it there is I'm not just going to be submissive to anybody. Like I'm going to be very, very choosy, very selective in who I do that to, and
Mm-hmm.
it's only one person, and that is Master Arcane, who has earned my deep, deep, deep trust. And so I'd be willing to do almost anything for him, but that's because I trust him.
Mm.
Um, to lead me. And I trust that he has my best interest at heart, that he's not going to harm me, that he's not going to do anything that, um, goes past my limits, my boundaries. And I love being able to finally explore that part of myself. Like I said, um, when I was dating around, probably about 12 years ago, I just could not find anybody to do that with.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it always spoke to me being submissive strictly in the bedroom. Well, no, that's not true either because we live it 24/7. But I would say outside of my relationship, I am not,
Mm.
a submissive person. And so I don't know, it's so nice to be able to give up control um to someone that I trust
Mm-hmm.
and have them do all the decision making, and it's fantastic.
Mm.
And sexually, I don't know, there's just something that's exciting about being in, just absolutely being at the mercy of my lover. And that's always given me a bit of a thrill. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of amazing to be able to do that all the time.
Beautifully said. So, can
Thank
you
you.
take us back to the first time you realized you were drawn to kink?
Yeah, so I consider myself to be quite lucky in that I grew up in a very like sex positive household. And I think most of that is attributed to my mother. My mom's always been in tune with her sexual nature, and she's never shied away from talking about it with us kids, and making sure that, we never need to be ashamed. Um, I want to say I was about 5 years old when I snuck into my parents' bedroom and I knew exactly where my dad kept his dirty magazines. And I think it might have been a Taboo magazine, thinking back now, just, because the content in it was quite racy. I believe there was a whole scene of like photos of this woman being handcuffed and tied up. on this bed, and I think I can't remember if it was two men or one man, but anyway, it was, for a 5-year-old brain, it was like, wow.
Hmm.
But that's not like what I've seen in the movies, because again, my mom was very much like, I'd rather her see sex than violence. And so I grew up watching movies like oh, what was that one with Sharon Stone? Fatal
Basic Instinct.
Attraction, Basic Instinct,
Hmm.
yes, that one. And then there was another one with Antonio Banderas and Angelina Jolie. What was that one called? Do you know the
I'm not
one?
sure. No, I don't remember that one.
Oh, but anyway, it was quite vanilla,
Hmm.
but still very racy. And those were my mother's two favorite films. And so I was used to seeing, vanilla sex, so to speak, and it didn't, not that it didn't do anything for me, it just wasn't shocking. And so when I
Mm.
saw that magazine and saw people having sex in a much different way, it was kind of like, oh, that's really fascinating. And so I was really like glued to it. And my parents were a bit concerned when they
Hmm.
found me reading that. But I think it's just sort of shaped my sexuality ever since.
Hmm.
And even as a girl, I found myself like attracted to villain type characters. There was just something about like the bad boy or the bad girl,
Hmm.
um, that they could. I would have fantasies about these characters that they would like tie me up and take me away, and I just loved that. And I think a lot of racy fan fiction as well sort of like opened my eyes. I was introduced to what was called non-con, right? Which in a kink context is a bit different, but basically in the fan fiction world, it just means, in this story, somebody's being taken against their will,
Mm.
and I don't know what it was, but it just sparked something in my brain again, like, and it took me back to that time when I was 5 years old, and I was like, I don't know what it is about this, but
Hmm.
this is amazing. And I remember feeling kind of guilty about it because I was like, this is one of the worst things that ever could happen to a woman. Like,
Oh.
why am I being so sexually excited by it? Like, that's
Mm.
not okay. And I think I talked to my mom about it, and she was like, "Oh, honey, like all women have that fantasy. Obviously, not all women are going to have
Mm.
that fantasy, but what she meant was that it was a very normal thing." And I
Hmm.
think um, at one point I did read in a Cosmopolitan magazine that it was the number one fantasy
Mm.
of like the women that were polled.
Hmm.
And so again, like, because I was also raised very feminist as well. And so those two things could finally quiet down because it's like, oh, I want to be taken against my will in a really fun, sexy way. But I'm like, but a man should never do that to a woman. And it
Mm.
was finally quieted down, like, no, it's okay. Like other women have these fantasies. It's fine.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with you. And
Mm.
so um yeah, so all of that in my teenage years and childhood years, I think has definitely shaped me into the person I am today.
Beautiful. So let's talk about feminism and submission. You just mentioned it. For newer submissives who struggle with being a feminist and a submissive, what would you say to them?
I would tell them that it's really important to understand that a submissive is someone who is submissive to one person only, like I said earlier.
Mm.
You have to be extremely selective and extremely choosy in who you're going to pick to be your dominant. And because that is the only person that you will submit to. And actually, it is my belief that in order to be a good submissive, you have to be a very strong woman. If you're going to be a submissive woman, you have to be a strong woman as well, because it is incredibly important that when you are in a scene and you're being a bottom or you're being submissive, or you're taking on that role, that you are able to speak your boundaries. If something gets out of line during a scene, you have to speak up and let either the top or the dominant know. And by the way, the difference between what I mean by these terms, top and dominant. Top just means someone who's using the toys. Doesn't necessarily mean that they want to be, a dominant, someone who's in control of the time. It's just someone who's using the toys in a BDSM scene.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas dominant is more the psychological side. They're the ones that want to be in control and guiding the submissive. You can be both, obviously, but for now, I'll just say when you are a bottom, a submissive in a scene, a BDSM scene, yes, again, it's incredibly important to, if something starts to go off, you need to speak up about it. Because I have personally been friends with another submissive woman who was in a scene, and she unfortunately was very new, and she was having the scene with this new top, and something apparently started to go wrong, but she did not speak up about it. She just
Mm.
kept it, she just internalized it, and it got worse and worse and worse until, at the very end, she was, crying and huddled in a ball, and the dominant, or
Mm.
the top is going, what's going on? I don't understand.
Mm.
And she was very angry and upset with him, and I kind of had to pull her aside and be like, what happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and then we found out that uh yeah, that she said, oh, he started to use a toy on me. I absolutely hated it. And, me and Master Arcane are going like, why didn't you say anything? And she's
Mm.
like, I just went internal. And we're like, okay, next time you're in a scene with somebody, you need to be able to speak up. And if you think that this sort of thing is going to happen again, you need to tell the top or dominant in the future, like, hey, if I start to seize up and get quiet and not respond,
Mm-hmm.
but you need to tell them that ahead of time. You can't just
Yes.
expect them to know that. And also, I think when a lot of people hear the word submissive, they think that they can just walk all over you.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's really important that, especially if you're going to be in a DS relationship with someone, um, and if you start, seeing yourself and having your partner see you as their property, like a master and slave relationship, you have to make sure that people are going to respect your master or mistress's property. That is
Mm-hmm.
you yourself. And so that's what Master Arcane and I do. And he's always instructed me, like, listen, if anybody ever um, crosses a line or treats you poorly, you stand up for yourself because I want my property taken care of. And I mean, naturally, I'm already going to be like that anyway, but it just, it gives me permission to, stand up for myself. And so I think that is what a lot of newer submissives need to understand is you are not a doormat. In fact, you need to be quite strong in order to be a submissive.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yep.
so yeah,
Yeah, I think it's important to highlight that being submissive is an active, not a passive process. So
yes,
that's all
exactly.
really great advice. Thanks for sharing.
Of course.
Now, as someone who's living in a deeply intentional and consensual 24/7 relationship while also identifying as a feminist, I found a paper that might speak directly to your experience that I wanted to ask you about.
Sure.
So it's titled Navigation of Feminist and Submissive Identity by Women in the BDSM Community. And
Oh,
it
wow.
involved the researchers looking at 17 peer reviewed articles and examining how women reconcile feminist identities with submissive roles in BDSM. And they found three core themes that emerge consistently across this literature. The first one was agency, power, and consent as feminist constructs. The
Hmm.
second was normalization of BDSM. And the third was reconciling feminist and submissive identities. So I just wanted to ask you a few questions about this. Let's
Yeah,
start
sure.
with that first theme, agency and consent. So, how do you personally experience your submission as an act of agency rather than disempowerment? What does that mean to you in your 24/7 dynamic?
I would say that this is something that I chose. And,
Mhm.
like I keep mentioning, I was very choosy. And Master Arcane and I, we talked and talked and talked for hours. We went over every single detail. So there
Mhm.
was lots of informed consent, and even throughout our years of being together, we have these contracted moments where we completely drop our roles and we talk and we negotiate. um, and so there's always a moment of checking in
Mm.
and me having the power to change things in within those negotiated timelines if I want. And I know that he will respect those. And it just builds this sense of trust that this is someone that I can give up power to in these moments. And yes, he is a man, and I am giving up my power to him. And like I said, I had to really wrestle with that within
Hmm.
our first year together. But I think the more and more we did scenes together, the more and more we spent time together, I just felt really fulfilled in that choice. And I know that those are some things within feminism as well, that can be a bit challenging for some people. Like when you see people that are full-time mothers and housewives, and some feminists go like, "What are you doing? You have the power to be anything you want. Like, why would you stick in these traditional, feminine roles?" And then another
Hmm.
feminist comes along and says, "No, you don't understand. Like, she's chosen this. This is what fulfills her. This is what makes her happy.
Mm.
Like, we should celebrate in her choice to do that. She's not being forced to do it. She's choosing it." And I think that power of choice is everything in
Mm.
feminism.
Yeah, I agree. So would you say your role as a slave has deepened your self-awareness or self-trust in ways that feminism alone might not have?
Oh, interesting. I don't think I've ever really thought about that,
Mm.
but I guess I don't know that it would necessarily mean that. I guess the question is, it's just different, you know?
Hmm.
It's like feminism has empowered me to grow up to be a strong woman and sort of discover that my rights as an individual human being are just as important as a man's.
Mm.
And BDSM, though, allows me to explore, I don't know, a very personal, it's just, it's almost like apples and oranges to me,
Hmm.
I suppose.
Hmm.
Like, I don't necessarily think that one is like teaches me more than the other. They're just two sides of the same coin, I
Hmm.
suppose.
Yep. The normalization of BDSM was also a key theme in the paper. Do you think the growing visibility of kink and power exchange has helped reduce shame for submissives, or do you find there's still misconceptions, especially for submissive women?
Yeah, I think there's still a lot of misconceptions, but it's definitely come a long way. I would say,
Hmm.
even though the book and films didn't do a great job at
Yeah.
all of exploring what it actually means to be in a DS relationship, Fifty Shades of Grey did get the conversation rolling and did make it more mainstream.
Mm.
And so I think, yeah, the more that it becomes visible, the more that people understand um, that this is a very normal and healthy way to explore your sexuality. I
Mm.
think the less and less misconceptions there will be, but I think we're still getting there,
Hmm.
especially in America where there's a lot of political upheaval going on.
Hmm.
There's a bit of an attack coming from the right side, to shame people that are open to explore this part of their sexuality because they still think that it should be hidden inside the bedroom where no one else can see, kind of type
Hmm.
deal. Um, but I do think it's really important um, that more and more people learn about it just so that they can do it safely. Um, because the more that it goes into the closet, the more that it goes underground, the
Hmm.
more chances there are of people getting hurt. And that's just not what we want, especially as educators, Master Arcane and I, we want people to enjoy and really relish in this part of themselves and with, to add it into the relationships, to respice things even.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, it's just, uh, it's, yeah, I mean, that's the core of it, really.
Yeah. So, one of the most powerful ideas in the study was that submission can also be a path of transformation. How has being Master Arcane's slave changed how you relate to power, not just in the bedroom, but in your identity, in the world, and in your feminism?
I would say that it has given me a sense of great peace,
Mm,
to know that I can, that I've got someone that I have ne like I have trusted him more than any other relationship with another person in my life, and that's given me, like I said, a true sense of peace. I know that I can come to him to for advice, for to help me make decisions where, as before, I really thought I had to kind of do that on my own, and now I'm more accepting of taking help from trusted loved ones. Like, I
mm,
don't have to be this strong, independent woman. I can lean on others. And
mm,
so that's given me a true understanding of how to rely on people. And I think I'm happier for it. But I would also say that it's given me a lot of confidence. Um, it's a bit of a struggle, as I'm sure you know, as a woman, to walk that fine line of, um, you know, do we be this badass bitch or do we be this, sweet
mm,
feminine woman? And it's sort of this weird bouncing of back and forth. And it's just nice when, because I can overthink so many things. And when our Master Arcane says, um, like, if someone treats you poorly, be that badass bitch, right? Like, who
mm,
cares what they think? You don't have to be this sweet and kind girl. Like, be an asshole to them if they're an asshole to you. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. And so just knowing that I have somebody in my corner all the time, um, it's really nice. And he gives me that permission. And I don't even have to think about it. I just think I'm protecting my master's property. Like,
mm,
don't mess with me, right?
mm,
So. I don't have to worry about like, oh, is this, am I being a cold woman? Am I being too much of a, am I being too, too much, too aggro? Am I, representing other women well? And it's like, I don't even got to worry about that anymore. I'm just going to be me.
Beautiful. Now, you've said that you love being Arcane's domestic slave. What does service mean to you on a day-to-day level?
Service on a day-to-day level just means helping him out with uh basic household needs. So I happily cook and clean and do all those sorts of domestic chores. There's something really relaxing about it, but I would say the biggest part of my service to Master Arcane is using my brain and using my creativity to help him in his business,
Mm,
and helping him problem solve, even helping with clients. And so that's been quite an experience. Uh, it's really nice too because I know that he values me for more than just my looks, but he, values my intelligence, which, as a woman in this modern day and age,
mm-hmm,
it's so much more gratifying for someone to be like, thank you, like that was really smart, or that was like, wow, incredibly helpful, like good job,
mm,
you know. And so other than just cleaning and doing dishes and vacuuming and that sort of thing, I like to help him with his creative projects, I think the most.
mm-hmm.
So that's the really like fulfilling stuff there.
And what about rituals? Do you practice them on a day-to-day basis to help you anchor into your submissive headspace?
Um, I think they've just become so background now. Yeah, we have a couple of what we would call micro rituals. And so one of our morning routines is that I make Master Arcane breakfast and get him his vitamins. And I'm just so like used to doing it at a certain time. Like, we wake up, we make coffee and tea together, and then after about an hour or two, he asks me to make breakfast, and I immediately get on that. And there's other things too, like one of them is I have to ask permission to use the restroom, and that's so deeply ingrained into my daily routine now that it's actually a bit of a chore when I'm not with him and I'm with other people. Like, when I have to go to the bathroom, I literally have to mentally stop myself from being like, "Can I go to the bathroom?" And I'm like, never say that out loud. Luckily, it's never happened in our 10 years of being together, but that's just how. how, yeah, deeply ingrained these rituals become, so much so that it's just second nature almost. And another thing that I'm actually really grateful for is because I am ADHD, it can be kind of hard to get into these kinds of habits. And so, one of the habits that I'm really, really happy that I've picked up is I used to be absolutely terrible about doing dishes. Oh gosh, they're the worst. And it's become a bit of a ritual now that after I make dinner and we're finished, I gather the dishes. And one of the rules of the house was, before we go play video games together, I want the kitchen clean. And so I don't even worry about it now. I just do it automatically. Whereas before, before I was with Master Arcane, like, oh gosh, the kitchen would just be a mess all the time. And I'd get so stressed out walking into it. And I'd get into that ADHD paralysis of like, oh, I can't do it. Like there's too much to do, and I'm just sitting there stressing, and it might look like I'm just being lazy and relaxing, but I'm literally just bullying myself. So it's just this awful, horrible thing. But Master Kane has really gone in there
Mhm.
and broken that up and helped me get into this routine of just making sure the kitchen especially is nice and clean and it's pleasant to be in. And I don't know. I love those sorts of things that have become a natural part of our relationship.
It's so fascinating to hear about. Thank you.
Hmm.
You've also mentioned that you have a concern about the manosphere's infiltration into kink spaces. What do you mean
Oh,
by this
yeah.
term manosphere, and what have you observed, and what are your fears around this?
So the manosphere, I could be wrong, but from what I have observed, it is I want to say like male empowerment groups, which in and of themselves is not a bad idea. Men do deserve to should be confident and learn to be confident within themselves,
Hmm.
whether it's in business and dating. But I think there is a sect of these like dating coaches, these male empowerment teachers, where they just take it way too far. Um, Unfortunately, Andrew Tate is a big name in this sort of sect. And so that's what I mean by my manosphere.
Right.
These like alpha male, men must be dominant all the time in business and dating, and through some videos that I've seen online and what certain male family members have brought up um, and have like sent me videos, and I'm just going, oh my God, like this
Mm.
is horrifying, because they are leaking into the BDSM realm because they see us with our terms, dominant male, master,
Hmm.
submissive female, and they just completely like ignore that, those roles can have any gender combinations, right? Like there's female dominance and there's
Hmm.
male submissives, right? But they just ignore that completely and they just make these videos on how to be a male dominant, right? And so unfortunately what's happening is that they are diluting the BDSM education um, sphere, and you're getting, I think, a lot of people that don't know the difference between uh, these manosphere guys and a true BDSM educator. And so my biggest worry is that you're going to have an influx of these heterosexual males that are misogynistic. I mean, let's
Hmm.
just let's call it for what it is. These just they don't have respect for women. They want women to be subservient to them all the time. They think that's their natural place. And when these types of men come into the BDSM scene and they're interacting with especially brand new female submissives who maybe don't know any better, it's
Mm.
just a recipe for disaster and hurt and possible trauma. And the BDSM is such a tricky, tricky situation to begin with, and it's just so awful to think that an unsuspecting female submissive might come into the BDSM scene, might meet somebody online or on a date or whatever, and just get completely swept up into something that doesn't resemble BDSM whatsoever, just on the surface level maybe, but and what she might take away from that and think that, oh, the BDSM scene is so toxic and evil. And It's just scary.
Yeah. I
So, and I don't ever want to be associated with those guys
mm-hmm.
ever. And so I feel like I constantly have to, like nowadays, I feel like I constantly have to preface like I'm a submissive, but I'm a feminist. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Like, so it's just it's really sad because I want to say about like 5 years ago, I feel like I didn't have to do that. You know what I
right.
mean? I was really proud to say that I was a female submissive, a slave even, but nowadays I don't ever want people to get the wrong idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I second your fears around that, and that's why you and Arcane's work around education in BDSM is so important. And I'm really happy to have you
Absolutely.
here today talking about it.
Yeah, thank you.
So, Daphne, what do you wish more people understood about the emotional and ethical core of BDSM?
Ooh, that is a good question. I guess I just wished that more people understood that this is can be a very intimate, um, and just an intimate experience that you can share with your partner and that will just bring you so much closer than you've ever been and really just build trust to such a solid degree. Um, it's just really quite incredible. But also to understand that BDSM is not always sexual. And I think that's really important
Mm-hmm.
because when people think of, BDSM scenes, they think of, all of these sexual elements. But an interesting fact is that you can do BDSM with platonic partners, completely platonic partners. I mean, I know a lot of people that are what we call play partners, where they're really, really good friends, and occasionally they'll top and bottom each other, and there's absolutely no sexual relationship there. That it truly is just an exchange of sensations, um, and I find that to be quite fascinating. Um, but that also that it's okay to want these things in your relationship, and for men to even understand that if your partner is, especially if your female partner is coming to you and asking these things of you, to understand that it is perfectly safe and you can do these things with your partner. And like I said, develop these immense levels of trust, but there is absolutely a way to go about it safely. And it's incredibly important that you educate yourself as much as possible before trying these things.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the most fascinating aspects of being a BDSM educator is that I want to say 90, maybe 85% of our clients are women who are in committed relationships with a man coming to us saying, I have always wanted this. I want to be either, most of the time it's submissive, but sometimes it's a switch, which is really fun. But I want my husband to dominate me in the bedroom, but he doesn't want to hurt me. Like, how do we
Mm,
navigate this? And that's incredibly common. And I think it's also really interesting to tell our male clients this too. Like, did you know that most of our clientele are women that are wanting this? And to kind of break apart their perception that they're not hurting their partner, they're giving them good and uh, really, really exciting sensations.
mm.
Um, and so, yeah, I just those are some things I wish more people understood.
I
That
love that.
it's an
Mm-hmm.
incredible experience, and it also doesn't have to be sexual if you don't want it to be.
Mm-hmm. Now, another tradition that we have on the podcast is sourcing a question from one of the listeners. And today's listener question was sourced specifically for you from someone who's curious about the 24/7 master slave dynamic.
Mm.
And the question they ask is this: I'm always curious to know how people within the kink community deal with having children. What do they recommend to someone who wants children and living in a 24/7 dynamic?
Oh, okay. So we get this question a lot as well because,
Mm,
like I said, most of our clientele are women in committed relationships and oftentimes with children. And so what we always tell them is it's incredibly important that you do not involve your children into your DS dynamic. And
mm-hmm,
so you got to hide it
Yeah.
as much as you can. But that doesn't mean that you have to stop whenever the children are well. You just have to mask it as something else. And so we always highly recommend having code words and maybe certain hand signals. Um, that the children may or may not pick up on, but to just sort of do your best to mask it and couch it in something to where the children are just like, oh, mom and dad are doing their weird hand signals to each other. Like I'm not even gonna pay attention. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I just personally I don't think it's a good idea to, be in role in front of your children.
Mm.
So to come up with just a way to mask it. And I mean, that's really it.
Yep.
And I would say um, to schedule dates, have certain times,
Mm.
like when you want to do really intense BDSM scenes, schedule them in your day and or in your week, and just say, hey, you know what, kids, we're gonna go to grandma and grandpa's house, and you're gonna spend the night. How fun, right? And
Hmm.
then that's when you come home and you do those intense BDSM scenes. You don't have to worry about children hearing you and finding out. So definitely scheduling a lot of free time together is also very important.
Hmm.
But it absolutely can be done. You absolutely can be in a 24/7 relationship with children.
Hmm.
So it is possible.
Well, great advice again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, what do you think has changed for yourself, like in your own erotic psychology over the past 10 years? What's the biggest change that you've noticed?
I would say the biggest change for me would just be my comfort in sexuality and being around sexual people, and not necessarily like polyamory. That's not what I mean. I mean like being in clubs where people are being very intimate with each other. They might even be having sex, and I'm around that, and it doesn't bother me.
Mm.
Not that it ever really bothered me, but I might have been, I think when I first got into the scene, I was pretty shy about it. I was shy about being naked in front of people. And I mean, now I could walk into a BDSM party fully naked. I don't care. I'm so comfortable in my own skin.
Hmm.
And and if people are having sex around me, I'm like, oh, good for them, right?
Hmm.
And so I just think that's incredible to be so comfortable in my own sexuality and in human sexuality in general that yeah, I could be sitting on a couch, talking with people, and then on the other couch next to me is a couple having sex. Like, doesn't bother me in the slightest.
Hmm.
And I don't know, there's just something so freeing about that, I would say, to just truly not have any uh what's the word I'm looking for? Just any baggage about that. And like
Mm.
yeah, I was lucky to grow up in a kind of household like that, to be very sexually open. But there was always a bit of that society, kind of coming in and being like, oh, but still, like, even if your mom and dad said it's okay, like you still need to hide it as much as possible and don't like discuss it with other people, like discuss it with like your closest friends and maybe your partner, but sex should not really be discussed like outside of like intimate areas
Hmm.
of your life. And so yeah, over the past 10 years I've learned to just let go of all of that. And I think that's why I'm such an open book today, is I can literally talk about any topic. None of it
Mm.
offends me. I'm not shy about any of it. I'm fully confident. So
Hmm. Now,
it's kind of incredible.
yeah,
Sorry.
it really
Mhm.
is. That's great evolution. Thanks for sharing. After
Of
10
course.
years as a slave, I'm super keen to hear your answer to this question. What
Hmm.
is a peak erotic experience that still lingers with you that you're happy to share with us today?
Oh yeah. So I had mentioned about being a bit of a nerd,
Hmm.
and I would say probably one of the most memorable, uh, fun experiences Master Arcane and I ever had was we were doing this role play, um, where I was Star Wars role play, where I was a Mandalorian
Hmm.
bounty hunter. And he was a Sith Inquisitor or something. And the role play was so deep and so I just I was absolutely on that Death Star, like being interrogated by this incredibly sexy Sith who, wanted to extract some information out of me, amongst other things. And it was probably one of the most fun things I've ever done in the bedroom. And that one in particular sticks out to me because I think it was the first time that I'd ever like fully released into a role play. Because before I'd done role play with other partners before, but it always felt like kind of silly and I wasn't very comfortable. So I'd be like laughing and making
Mm.
jokes, but this time I was like in it. We
Mm-hmm.
both were, and Arcane will probably bring it up as well. Um, it was so much fun and it was so sexy because I was a big Star Wars fan as a kid and I'd had a lot of fantasies about Darth Vader and whatnot. And and so it just to be able to experience that, it was just it felt like a fantasy kind of coming
Mm.
true. And it was just so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about it a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
we've had some other amazing role plays too, but that one just, well, I think because it was the first time where I was like, wow, I'm actually like, I used to have dirty thoughts like this as a kid, but now I'm actually getting to do it.
Mm. Yep.
So it was just, yeah, it was incredible.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like a lot of fun. Now, you've taught for a long time in the Crow Academy about what it means to be a slave. I'm curious to
Mhm.
hear what's one question about being a slave that you wished more people asked you?
Um, that is a good question. Let's see. One question that I wish more people asked me about being a slave. I guess it would be a question of how does it fulfill you,
Mm.
and what is the difference between um, being a submissive and being a slave. And I would say that it fulfills me by there's just something about, well, okay, first and foremost, let's differentiate. At least here at the Crow Academy, we define slave as being a deeper dive into the submissive role. You're giving up more power because you've established a stronger base of trust. And
Mm.
so for me, when I was a submissive with Master Arcane, we weren't doing it 24/7. And so after about I want to say probably about a year of like really like making sure that this was for me, that we worked as a couple. That's when he offered me the master slave contract and, went over with me what it would mean to be 24/7 and if that was something I wanted, and it absolutely was. And what that would mean, which for us, it just meant that he would have more control over what I looked like, what I would do for him sexually, and, like I said, domestically, creatively, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, and if I was comfortable with that. And we had sort of practiced it like a couple times before um, by being, deep, deep in in the slave role for like a couple of weekends here and there until we extended it to about a week. And then when he felt that I was ready, he asked me, are you ready? Do you want to take it to the next level? And I said yes. And there's just something about, like I said, having somebody in my corner um, that I fully, absolutely trust and being able to just give him a lot of the mental load of my day. Like I can just come to him and ask him like I can't figure out what I want to wear. Can you tell me like what am I going to wear today? And he goes, "Oh, yeah, great. I want you to do your hair this way. I want you to put your makeup this way. I want you to put on these shoes, this top, these bottoms, And I'm like, "Okay, great. Thanks. Now I can like focus on my creative work. Now I can,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to worry about these things anymore." And I don't know, it just it I I guess I have a problem making decisions sometimes, and so it's really nice to be able to come to that with somebody that I so deeply trust.
Mm.
And like I said, just give him that mental load so I can
Mm-hmm.
focus on other things. Because especially somebody who's an artist and who has ADHD, my mind is constantly going,
Mm.
I'm sure you can relate to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's nice when I don't have to worry about, like I said, a lot of things.
Yep.
I just get to come to him and be like, what am I doing? And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
all of this. And I'm like, great.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So, what are you looking forward to at the moment, Daphne? What's next to explore in your erotic realm?
Oh, interesting. So I would say different styles of kink play. One of the things that we have been talking about for a while, but we haven't really explored, is pony play.
Mm-hmm.
And that we have explored animal play quite a bit, and that's a lot of fun. And animal play, by the way, just means that I take on the role of a certain animal, and he becomes, not Master Arcane to me anymore. He becomes my owner, but
Mm-hmm.
a pet owner, so to speak. And so it's it's not sexual. It's sometimes it's sexual for people, but for us it's not. It's purely just play.
Mm.
And one of the things that I always did as a child is pretend to be an animal because I love animals, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
especially loved animals as a kid. I would pretend to be them. And so that it just brings me back to I don't know, it puts me in touch with my child self,
Mm.
and all the stresses of an adult just just disappear and melt away,
Mm-hmm.
and I get to be sort of a kid again, and have a lot of fun and play, and to be able to do that with another adult is just, I don't know, it's so much fun. And I used to be a horse girl.
Okay.
And so another friend of mine who is also a horse girl. When I mean horse girl, I just mean someone who is really into horses
Mm-hmm.
and like constantly talking about horseback riding and this kind of type deal.
Yep.
But and that included pretending to be a horse. And so now um, I have always wanted to try out pony play for that exact reason because I used to also pretend I was a horse and to be able to uh, reestablish that connection with that part of my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
But also the pony play community is just so incredible and looks so amazing. And I mean, there's all this beautiful gear and just really like sexy stuff, even though I said we don't really do it for sex. Just the look of it. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know, something about like a girl with a bit in her mouth, and she's wearing like leather and got her hands tied behind her back, and she's wearing these shoes that make it look like hooves, and she's pulling a cart. I don't know, there's just something that makes my mind spark, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I want to try that so bad.
Mm.
And so that's what I'm really looking forward to. But the gear can be a little bit expensive though, so we've sort of put it off. Um, but we keep coming back to it and talking about it and being
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, let's break into that community, like let's do all because they have all these like super fun events. I think they have like a fox hunt that they do where they get, so it's a bit of a blend of all of the animal play spaces, but you have your horses and you have your dogs and then you have your foxes, that sort of thing. And so I always thought it would be fun to be a horse.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's, I think, one thing that I'm really looking forward to get to try with Master Arcane, especially now, like after 10 years, when I feel like we've tried just about everything. Like, this is the one thing we haven't done.
There's always more, right?
Oh, there is
Yep.
always more. Yeah. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure after we try that, there'll be another thing that we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about doing. So
Mm-hmm.
and that's really cool about being in a BDSM relationship is that there's always something new to try.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love that because it really keeps the relationship quite spicy
Mm-hmm.
and interesting.
Yep.
So,
Sure does. Now, if you had to sum up your sexuality in just one word, what would that word be and why?
mm, oh my gosh, that's so hard.
It is.
One word.
What comes to mind for you today?
Oh, slave, I guess.
Okay.
Like if I were to
Mm-hmm.
not like think about it, like the
Mm-hmm.
first word to come to mind is slave, but that's
Mm-hmm.
just because that's the core of my sexuality and the core of who I am with Master Arcane.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's the easiest way to put it.
Yep. So If my
So,
listeners want to learn more about you and your work with Master Arcane and the Crow Academy, where can they find you, Daphne?
so they can find me on crowacademy.com. They can also email me at Daphne@crowacademy.com if they have any specific questions.
Hmm.
But we also have a website called arcaneadvice.com, and that's got some articles. Um, I think I've written maybe one or two, but I intend to write a couple more in the future. And then we also have a YouTube channel that we haven't really updated, but it's sort of been a video archive of a lot of like free content that we've put out. I think I've done again like two videos there. Um, so crowacademy.com, arcaneadvice.com, and sorry, YouTube is under the name Master Arcane.
Hmm.
So you can find a lot of content there. But yes, if anybody wants to reach out to me personally, Daphne@crowacademy.com is my personal email.
Wonderful. I'd like to thank you for being so open and sharing yourself with me and our listeners today, Daphne.
Of course. And yeah, and thank you again so much for having me. It's been a true delight.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'm Em, and this has been the Erotic Realm podcast. Thank you for listening to the Erotic Realm. If this episode stirred something in you, please take a moment to follow the show, leave a rating, or write a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It helps more people find the show and brings visibility to this deeper conversation about eroticism and self-understanding. I'd also like to invite you to dive deeper into the psychology of desire, including my writing, research, and upcoming courses over at psychologyofdesire.com. And if you want the full experience, join thousands of curious minds on my Substack at psychologyofdesire.substack.com, where I release the Psychology of Desire case files, behind-the-scene thoughts, and intimate reflections every week, plus more. Until next time, stay curious, stay embodied, and keep exploring. Also, as always, stay perverted.